Jaw surgery is one of the biggest financial decisions I've ever made in my entire life. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the finances behind jaw surgery and how I'm planning to pay for it.
Some of the things that I've had to pay for during this process include orthodontics, consults, imaging, myofunctional therapy, physical therapy. I've had to do TMJ treatments, and ultimately I'm going to have to pay for surgery out of pocket. Getting jaw surgery and orthodontics as an adult has been a big decision for me because of my financial background. I grew up with relatively little money. Between having a teenage mom and being raised by my grandparents who survived off disability and minimum wage jobs, I didn't have great financial role models. So a lot of what I've learned about financial literacy has been self-taught or literally on the job or through trial and error. I made a lot of mistakes to get to this point to where I can pay for jaw surgery out of pocket, and it was not easy. And I made a lot of sacrifices in order to get to where I am today. 10 years ago, I was making $14.25 an hour living in Houston, Texas, which was not enough for me to survive on. Between college and recently graduating, I'd racked up between $10,000 and $15,000 of consumer debt, and I had $25,000 of student loan debt. All of this happened before I even thought about doing jaw surgery again. But between 2018 and 2023, I was able to pay down all of my consumer debt and start tackling my student loans, as well as make some new financial investments in myself. And around this time is when I started to rethink about jaw surgery, because it's when my symptoms started to flare up again. So deciding to move forward with the jaw surgery wasn't just a medical decision, but it was a financial one. With that being said, I want to talk more about the actual costs of braces and jaw surgery. When I first started braces, I was in Invisalign and I was quoted $8,000. I do have dental insurance and they cover up to $1,500 of the orthodontic treatment, which was great because that means that my portion would only be $6,500. But I was paying all of that out of pocket and I put a $2,000 down payment for the Invisalign. Recently, I also had to switch to metal braces, but that was covered in the orthodontic treatment plan that I had already paid for with Invisalign. What's great about orthodontics is that most practices allow you to pay monthly, so you're able to break that overall cost down into more manageable chunk. I just made my last payment for my orthodontics in January using my FSA money. So that was really great that I didn't have to actually pay that out of my own money, which I had been doing for the past year and a half. And I say it's not my own money. Like, my FSA money is my money. It's just like a savings account that's pre-tax. So the money's already spent. One of the biggest costs during this process has been consulting with jaw surgeons. And so if I could give anyone like one tip, it would be make sure to research and decide which jaw surgeons you want to consult with before you start consulting, because I've gone to 5 consultations now and they've ranged anywhere from $150 to $450. It is not cheap. I didn't meet with some doctors that I would have wanted to meet with because the price was so steep. I couldn't imagine just continuing to essentially what felt like throwing money in the trash. I've picked a jaw surgeon and I'm happy with how I'm moving forward, so I shouldn't have to pay for any more consultations. Also, at the beginning of treatment, before I started my braces, I got an oral appliance through my TMJ doctor to ensure that my bite was stable enough to go into orthodontics. And that oral appliance cost me $2,800, which was at the time the most money I'd ever spent on anything that wasn't like school, like my higher education. So it was quite the investment, and it's something I can't even use now that my teeth have shifted due to orthodontics. Some other things that I paid for out of pocket that aren't surgery are myofunctional therapy, physical therapy. I've had a lot of imaging done that is all out of pocket. I've also done laser therapy with my TMJ specialist. The cost adds up pretty quickly, especially because orthodontic treatment is usually capped at a certain amount, and things like jaw pain and jaw surgery aren't considered orthodontics. It's considered like health, typically not covered under insurance because either it's considered cosmetic or it's considered experimental. most insurances, from what I've researched, do not cover jaw surgery. Especially where I am, the insurance that I have a really good insurance plan, but the plan that I have in the state that I live in does not cover jaw surgery. And that means that I'm going to be paying completely out of pocket. I've been quoted anywhere from $16,000 to $100,000. That's quite a big difference. As a person who grew up with no money and who has worked very hard for every dollar they have, I wouldn't feel comfortable spending $100,000 on anything. I tried really hard to get insurance that would be covered under that surgeon's practice, but it did not work out. The surgeon that I chose to go with is pretty transparent about their pricing. They charge $8,000 per jaw. So if I have to have upper and lower jaw surgery, which I do, it would be $8,000 on the top and $8,000 on the bottom. And then I also have to pay for the anesthesiologist. I can't remember the exact number. In my head, it's between $6,000 and $8,000 total. I kind of just round up so I know what I need to have in my savings account. And what's nice about my surgeon is that he does all of his surgeries in his office. He has an operating room. That means that we're cutting out all of the fees for a hospital, and the anesthesiologist is private, so they'll come in and I pay them separately. Most of what I have to pay for going forward is going to be things to help me recover from jaw surgeries, like all of the medical tools that I'll need to make sure that my mouth is being cleaned out, that I'm able to eat, and possibly invest in some like massage services, saunas, or red light therapy. I don't know exactly what that looks like at this moment, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to get to a place where I can pay for all of that in addition to the jaw surgery so that I can make sure that I'm set up for the most optimal healing experience. Something else that this jaw surgery has cost me is travel. So I travel 5 hours to see my orthodontist and my jaw surgeon. I would prefer to go to a larger city who has more reputable jaw surgeons, but the price of gas, vacation time that I have to take, my sick time that I have to take is all factored into the cost. You might be wondering, how am I going to pay for all of this? Well, first off, I have a full-time job, which pays me approximately $69,000 a year. And a part of that full-time job, I have dental insurance, health insurance, an FSA, and I had an HSA before I switched to the what I call Cadillac plan, which is the best health plan and the most expensive health plan that my employer offers. And I switched to that one just because I knew that this year was likely the year I was going to have jaw surgery. And so I wanted to just have that safety net in case it was needed. Even though I know that jaw surgery isn't going to be covered by insurance, there's costs that could be associated with jaw surgery that I would have to pay for. And so I have $4,300 in my FSA account, which I've been using throughout the year, and I will use on my jaw surgery if I still have money on it. I also put money into my 401k, which would be a last resort if I needed that to help pay for jaw surgery. I also have savings. As of this morning, I had $25,000 in my savings account. That is made possible not only because I am incredibly frugal with my money, but I also have a side gig, which is dog sitting. So over the past 3 years, I've been able to establish a pretty good client list of people who have me dog sit for them and house sit for them. So I'm extremely lucky in that I've organically been able to build this client list, and I do it outside of my normal 9 to 5. I'm actually currently dog sitting right now, which is part of why the scenery might look a little different. That has been incredibly helpful for me. In 2023, I was able to take home $13,000 just from dog sitting, but I do not look for new clients at all. I mostly just get referrals from the clients that I already have. And I also, like I said, I'm very frugal. I have relatively low cost of living expenses. My rent is very low, and my monthly bills are very low. I don't have a bunch of subscriptions. I don't do delivery services. I am very intentional about how I spend my money and where I choose to splurge, because I know I'm saving for a large expense. I don't travel. I don't invest in new hobbies. And these are just some of the sacrifices that I have to make in order to ensure I can pay for jaw surgery out of pocket, because I don't want to accrue any debt to have this surgery. I know that some people would take on debt in order to have the surgery, but it really is just like your lifestyle and what you're willing to sacrifice and what risk you're willing to take on. Because of how I grew up and because of my previous financial experiences, I am really reluctant to take on new debt, and I hate knowing that I have to pay people. I know that life can change at any minute, and I don't want to have to owe a bunch of money to anyone. It is just a huge accomplishment that I've gotten to a place in my life where I can pay fully out of pocket for jaw surgery and also hopefully have some left over. I will try to submit my jaw surgery for reimbursement by insurance, but it is highly unlikely that they will cover it. Oftentimes, insurance deems jaw surgery and just like dental health in general as either cosmetic or experimental or non-essential. So a lot of times you will find that jaw surgery is not covered by insurance, and it is very unlikely that I will be able to get my jaw surgery covered, even though I do have medical necessity. I could not tell you how full of glee and joy that I would be if my surgery was covered, because that would mean that I have an extra $25,000 that I thought was just a sunk cost, and I would be like so rich. That would be crazy to me. The biggest takeaway here is that being really intentional with how you spend your time, with how you invest your time and your money, is going to help you accomplish any goal, whether that be a different medical expense, braces, paying for school out of pocket, and sometimes you have to make large sacrifices in order to accomplish a goal that you've been working towards. And for me, that goal is jaw surgery, because I know that my life will be significantly improved. I'm happy to go into more detail as it relates to the financial aspect of jaw surgery or braces, but I'm just not a finance person and I'm not an insurance person, and this is just my lived experience that I've had to navigate almost entirely on my own because I don't have anybody who's gone before me to do something like this. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope to see you in the next video.